Holly Jackson, thank you for decoding all things White House for us today. Thanks for spending some time with us. We appreciate it. Sure. Glenn Thrush, I have been dying to ask you about the new Washington romance between Chuck and Donnie. Tell me what you think.
Chuck and Donnie, I like that a lot. By the way, I love the way that Trump pronounces Irma as Irma.
With an E.
Which is exactly how Chuck Schumer pronounces Irma.
Interesting. Let's look at you right there on the love connection, right there with me.
That's it. But look, Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump have a better relationship than they have portrayed. It's behooves both of them to do this kabuki thing where they say that they're not talking and not communicating. The truth of the matter is they've known each other for 3 decades probably. They have a perfectly fine, cordial relationship. And they both speak the same language. It's like home cooking to Trump.
Oh, let me cut you off, though, because let me show you some. I mean, it is like all stormy, passionate relationships. It's had its ups and downs. Let's look at what the president said about him when he was calling him Crying Chuck.
I noticed Chuck Schumer yesterday with fake tears. I'm going to ask him who is his acting coach, because I know him very well. I don't see him as a crier. If he is, he's a different man. There's about a 5% chance that it was real, but I think they were fake tears.
So not afraid to trash talk.
But look, there was a 5% chance, Nicole. So 5%. Apparently that 5% really paid off. These guys just... The funny thing about it is Trump is allied to Republicans who he has nothing in common with. Mitch McConnell, remember the famous line that Barack Obama said to a reporter who asked him why he didn't have a beer with Mitch McConnell? And Obama said, "Would you have a beer with Mitch McConnell?" You know, Trump has the same issues with McConnell. They totally don't get along. The serious issue here is there is no smarter, as you know, there's no smarter, more clever, leveraging operator in Washington, D.C. than Chuck Schumer. And once he's in the room, once he gets in the room, it's very hard to get him out of the room. That's
right. Eliana, you've had some incredible reporting over the last couple of days. Take us inside your understanding of this new reality in Washington.
Well, let's see how long it lasts. You know, that's something I've hinted at in my reporting, because the president's ability to go from calling him Crying Chuck with an acting coach and fake tears one day to palling around with him the next day is quintessential Trump. But I think Glenn hints at something important, which is deep down, Trump does feel an affinity for Chuck Schumer that he simply doesn't feel for Mitch McConnell. And he has exhibited absolutely no interest in leading the Republican Party, in protecting its congressional majorities, or serving as its, ideological backbone in any way. That's why you see him insulting incumbent Republicans who would help firm up Republican majorities in the House and in the Senate. And he behaves the way he does simply based on who he likes and he doesn't like. And the fact is, he doesn't much like Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, and they haven't made much of a secret that they feel similarly about him. What I wonder is, he acted the way he did because his interests happened to align with Chuck Schumer's this time. He went in, he wanted the debt ceiling lifted, and he wanted Harvey relief to go to Texas very quickly. And he wanted to clear those things away so that Republicans could focus very clearly over the next 3 months on tax reform. The question that was left in my mind is, has he weakened his negotiating position with Republicans by making himself an untrustworthy and unreliable negotiating partner with them at a time when he may need it most? Because I think he wants to be in a strong negotiating position with his fellow Republicans going into these tax negotiations.
Let me bring in my table here, Jonathan Lemire and Brett Stevens, New York Times columnists. Jonathan, first with you, where does this leave Paul Ryan? I mean, yesterday the image of a Paul Ryan who had probably a previously scheduled event where he sort of came out with his tail between his legs and conceded that his statement calling the deal that ultimately passed, I think ridiculous or disgraceful, I think was the word he used, was the deal that the president did. How does he now, I mean, he had dinner with him last night. Tell us what you know about the state of play at this hour between Paul Ryan and Donald Trump.
The contrast between Paul Ryan kind of grimacing through his answers yesterday, contrast that with Nancy Pelosi, who was jubilant, saying like, hey...
But why wouldn't she be? She was literally pulling the strings and getting Donald Trump to tweet what she wanted him to tweet.
I asked him to tweet something. He did it. Paul Ryan has not had that control.
I don't even think General Kelly has that,
No.
you know.
She seems to have the magic touch.
Takes a woman.
That's right. The relationship between Paul Ryan and Donald Trump is not particularly good. It was obviously very frosty through much of the campaign. The speaker withdrew his support after the Access Hollywood tape. There seemed to be a suggestion they started to work together a little bit better early on in the Trump administration. But Trump has told people around him that he remains furious at the speaker for having him go with health care first, that he would promise him an easy win of that initial House bill, that this would be a way to get some momentum and get going. It fell apart. And the president has blamed him ever since. And particularly since the departure of Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, who's tight with Paul Ryan, the two of them speak far less. Priebus tried to keep them together, tried to stress to each why it was important this relationship be maintained. These days, they speak far less frequently.
Brett?
Look, I think Donald Trump is doing one of his classic moves, which is sort of brilliant stupid. It's brilliant in the sense that it gives him this short-term political advantage. It puts the Republicans in Congress off balance. It makes them worried about his loyalties. It gives Trump the appearance of being sort of above politics. But it's stupid because can you imagine the Democratic Party in any way swinging behind the Trump administration? So the net result for the president politically is he loses conservatives, especially on the right, the Freedom Caucus conservatives, but he's not going to gain the Democrats. It's a worst of both worlds situation for him. So this is a classic Trump play, and it's going to end in tears for him.
To follow up on that point, we have reporting that the president has told people close to him he's been thrilled with the coverage of the media coverage of this week, that he likes the idea of being the bipartisan deal maker, that he was able to sort of be unconventional and make a deal across the aisle, and they felt comfortable doing that, and he has told people around him and told Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi that he was thrilled with it.
I talked to someone who saw him yesterday. He said he was practically skipping zippity-doo-dah around the West.
Look, Trump actually had an opportunity very early on in his presidency to be something more than just classic Republican. And he's right in complaining that Paul Ryan's insistence on doing health care first was a political disaster for him. If he had led with, say, a big infrastructure bill, you would have seen many Democrats, especially people like Sherrod Brown, Joe Manchin.
It's like the highway bill. Everyone wants it.
Everyone wants the highway bill, and Democrats talk about infrastructure all the time, and it's a genuine need for this country. But he didn't do it, and now you have 6 months of Trump being Trump. So I somehow don't quite see the Elizabeth Warrens of the party or even the Sherrod Brown saying, you know, actually he's not such a bad guy.
Exactly. All right, everyone stay put. We're simply hitting